Well, we're sitting here at the end of the 2011 legislative session in June. I'm joined by Joe Muratori and Peter Carr, two of our legislative team who've been very integral to independent agent issues. As we entered this session, Governor Cuomo came in with a strong mandate for the voters to clean up Albany, enact a property tax cap, get an on-time budget, and he really succeeded brilliantly with those issues. One of his budget proposals was the merger of the insurance and banking department, and Peter's going to talk a little bit about that issue.
Yeah, one of the themes as part of the governor's budget was to consolidate agencies where there were efficiencies to be made. The banking and insurance department was a natural for the governor. He also called for the inclusion of the Consumer Protection Board within that agency. Many stakeholders in the financial services industry welcomed the merger, but were concerned about the Consumer Protection Board and some of the overly strong language in the bill that gave this new agency enforcement powers, first under the Martin Act, and included some broad language that we were concerned about. We did meet with the governor's office, with the Assembly and the Senate. We were able to reshape the bill in a way that made it consistent with the insurance and banking department mission as it currently stands. The agency will take effect officially October 3rd. We continue to work with the agency and the governor's office in the implementation of this merger, and hope that we have a final product at the end of the year that is both efficient and nimble and is responsive to the issues of independent agents and brokers.
Great. Other issues that we dealt with, key issues that really redefine the insurance marketplace in New York State. The merger was one of them. Health insurance exchanges, as mandated by federal law. The policymakers in both houses and the governor's office negotiated a bill that would set up a health exchange in New York State. We were integral to that process as well. We're going to deal with that separately, but the bill that was the agreed on bill has not yet passed both houses. Really has a lot in it that's positive for producers, and we're going to be doing a separate video on that. Another issue that we dealt with this year that's been around quite a while is the issue of commercial modernization. Used to be known as commercial deregulation, and Jill's going to talk about that.
Right. We engaged in negotiations on this legislation several months ago, and actually the issue's been around for years, and I know Peter's been actively involved for over 10 years, hasn't it been, Peter, on this issue? So finally, this was the magic year for this issue to pass, and it's one that's going to be very good for the insurance industry in New York. It will allow insurance companies to file forms without approval, file forms and rates without approval from the insurance department for only those large commercial sophisticated risks that are defined in the bill as those that are large enough that really don't need the protections that are afforded other businesses under the insurance law. So this is going to help the insurance industry in New York become more competitive with excess and surplus lines carriers. The insurance agents are protected in this legislation. We made sure that there was a role for them with respect to becoming risk managers under the law to advise these large commercial risks. And we also made sure that there was an appropriate limit on what the definition of a large sophisticated commercial insured would be. And Michael, you might want to address some of this. We've seen in the press there have been some misinformation on that. The criteria is certainly much more than a premium limit. I don't know if you want to talk a little more about that.
Yes, as Jill said, there's been some erroneous reporting out there about the impact of this legislation. First of all, there's some real restrictions on carriers to be able to do this, and there's a real oversight role for the insurance department. Second of all, the erroneous reporting centered around the premium threshold, which in our mind is not the most important criteria. It's $25,000 as a $25,000 up as a premium threshold, but there are other criteria in there that would define a large, sophisticated insured: gross sales, net worth, things like that. So it's not just premium level. Peter, you have any other comments on that issue? Okay. Another issue we dealt with is wrap-up insurance. That issue's been around a long time. Wrap-ups are used in the private sector, typically on large single-site projects, $150 million and up. The state has put forward legislation again this year to allow them to do wrap-ups. The problem is that the way the state is looking at wrap-ups is not the way it's done in the private sector. What the state wants to do is take a lot of smaller projects, lump them together, call it a wrap-up, and require all the contractors or business people insured under the wrap-up to buy their insurance from a single broker or a single company, and that is not the way wrap-ups traditionally work. We were able to defeat that legislation this year, and really that's a benefit to producers and their contractor clients around the state. The one other issue we want to mention is the issue of fines and penalties. Jill?
Right, yeah, that was also part of, early on in the session, during budget discussions. Seems every year there's a push to raise the fines and penalties for violations of insurance law. And again, we saw that this year, an increase from the $500 minimum penalty to $10,000, which is just too high of a jump, which, you know, the message was, you know, if you're going to raise this, certainly not that high. So we were able to convince legislators not to increase those fines and penalties to that extent. And they did raise a little bit this year, but they haven't been raised in over 26 years, I believe. So it was, I guess, time for it to go up a little bit.
Okay. And that's really the end of some of these key issues. Many more bills we dealt with during the session. We're going to be dealing with the health insurance exchange this summer and into the fall. And appreciate your watching today, and thank you.